guys, I'm Vulture Culture, and this is Twisted Trees for Spectrasonics Omnisphere. We were just checking out a patch I programmed before the stream called Granular Ghost, using some of these sound sources from Twisted Trees and the granular engine that's built in to Omnisphere 2. So today's stream is going to be looking at using the sample content and bespoke effects inside of Twisted Trees to make your own patches. I think one of the problems with Sonic extensions is the concept is kind of vast or a little bit different than just a patch library or a new VST instrument. Sonic extensions sort of exist in this middle area between the two. And so what I wanted to do was focus on that you're actually able to make your own sounds with Sonic extensions. You don't have to just use the custom controls and patches that are pre-programmed within Twisted Trees or any of the Sonic extensions. I went with Twisted Trees just because it's the newest one. So I want to jump in real quick. So I'm just going to initialize this patch real quick. And then what we can do is open up a sample just by hitting the folder here. And what we can do is sort the directory by Sonic extension. So we could use just Nylon Sky content. We could, only use Moog Tribute library content. But for today, we're going to do Twisted Trees. And all of these patches that we create tonight, by the way, are going to be linked for free download in the comments after the stream. So hang around if you want to do some learning. If you just want the patches for free, just go to the comments. Maybe throw me a like and subscribe too while you're at it. So by moving here, you can see that there's a lot that we can do to actually go through all of this content. Now, I want to emphasize here, these are not patches. This is just the sample content that was used to make up the patches in Twisted Trees. And I actually don't know the answer to this. All of this was created by Diego Stocco, incredible sound designer who works with Hans Zimmer and does a bunch of movie trailers like for Stranger Things and stuff like that. And it's just truly an artisan in every sense of the word. Couldn't have more respect for Diego. But what we have here is just a crazy amount of content. What I was going to say is, I don't know if all of this was even used in the making of the patches, or if there's some stuff in here that wasn't ever used. So we can sort these by different categories here. So we could go immediately to, say, psychoacoustic, which is kind of my favorite category, and maybe Diego Stocco's like signature category, all of the interesting hybrid instruments that he's made. We could go sort that further by bowed, bowls and bells, custom built instruments, psychoacoustic effects. In this case, let's go custom built. And then we have these 6 instruments here. And the Fire Beast is that awesome cello that has a forest growing out of it you can see it in the Twisted Trees launch promo. Aquatic Borealis, how's it going, my friend? So now we've cut down this huge sample library down to just a few samples, so we can check these out real quick. Random monkey. Let's go with bass. This sounds really cool, right? And the first thing we can do is we can lower the octave by going to the main page tier and just drop this down. So I actually don't need to do that. It's already down a low enough octave. Sort by Beats, Bears, Battlestar Galactic. What we can do is then trim off a little bit of the sample start. So because it's a bowed instrument, it's got a little natural attack before it reaches full intensity. What you can do is just bring that over. So we have immediately that sound. Now we can, one thing I want to point out too, that I think a lot of people don't know about Omnisphere, or at least I get the impression a lot of people don't realize this about Omnisphere. Now that we have this sample here, we do not need to do any menu diving to actually create a sound. So the thing that everybody hates about VSTs and some hardware is menu diving. You have to do all of this like going through different menus, and it's confusing and chaotic. You can actually get away with just using Omnisphere's basic controls right here, and that's it. You never have to do anything else other than maybe change layers or add some effects. It's very simple. So going left to right here, these are the 6, I guess you could say, synthesis engines. So here's the sound without any FM. You can hear that we can apply 2-op operator FM to the sound immediately. We can always go in here and change things, right? But for now, let's just hit this magnifying glass, zoom out, and just apply each one of these buttons just to see what they do real quick. We could use the ring modulator. I really like how the ring mod adds a sort of throatiness. It pulls out a little of the bass too. So we can add a little of aggression with the wave shaper here, which is a different type of distortion. Right? So without it, with it, just brings it forward a little bit in the mix. You know, it's a little bit closer to your face. We can adjust the timbre of this by either shifting it, which basically works by moving which multi-sample you're using with whatever sample you start with. In the case of this, in the case of this sample, it seems like we have only one sample we're working with, so it's not doing anything on this mode. But with Crush, it actually sort of emulates the sound of vintage samplers and adds a little bit of bit crush in there. Wow. So immediately we start to get a very cool sound to it. Really cool. Right now, we are listening to the stereo sample, but we could actually apply unison to that as well. Right? So, without, with, it's just a little bit more thick, chorusy, a little bit more unison. An alternative to using the unison engine, which is sort of like JP8000 unison, is the Harmonia, which gives you deeper control. If you look in the menu, you can actually set up which, in this case, we've got a 5th up and an octave down, so that sounds like this. Which is also very cool. But today, we can just get away with using the unison engine. And of course, we've got granular as well. So we can feed all of that now into the granular engine, but that will disable the unison engine. And there's all sorts of settings in here as well. And you can see all of the grains happening in real time in front of you. But once again, I just want to show that you don't have to get super technical with Omnisphere to make really great sounds. So I'm going to kick the filter on real quick. And you'll notice that we're not really hearing a lot. And the reason is because over here, we need to adjust the decay time of the filter. So just like on an analog synth, we got a very simple ADSR. I'm going to bring the cutoff down so we get a little bit more. Now that we've got a very short decay, it's got a lot of snap to it. We've got a pretty good bass sound already. Probably just need a little bit of release. And going back to the main page here, what we can do is we can put it into solo mode to make it monophonic. I'll turn legato off. That way we get a re-trigger of that envelope every time. And yeah, so we've got something pretty cool. without having to do too much. But right now the sound is a little bit static, even though we're starting with something more dynamic than just, say, a couple of sawtooth oscillators. So to create some modulation, yeah, now sample it in the DSS1. So to create some modulation here, we can just right click and modulate with LFO, super simple. And now you'll notice that it's already created this routing, and it would have jumped to whatever LFO we're using. In this case, it's just LFO1. So if we listen to this now, we can move this over. Really cool. Let me adjust this rate here. We've got a little bit of a pop at the front of the sound, so I'm just going to apply a few seconds. There we go. Just a little bit to take off the front end of that pop that we're hearing, the click. Sounds really good. So now we've got this sort of cool filter sound. Of course, we could add some resonance. And we can change filter types directly from the front here as well. You don't have to go into this and go crazy with it. Fat Boy sounds great. And when you see a magnifying glass on anything, that means you can dive deeper and check out what's going on. So if we hit this, you can see under the preset Fat Boy, we've actually got a warm 24 decibel 4-pole filter or a 2-pole filter over here. And they're both happening at the same time. They're in parallel, not in series, and they're just slight mix offset there. So we can see what's going on. Anyways, that's a pretty cool little sound, but it's really only using one aspect of Twisted Trees, which is the sample. But of course, what makes Twisted Trees awesome and all of the sonic extensions awesome are the effects. So looking in the sonic extensions here, we can go to Twisted Root, and I'll pull up while I'm here, Twisted Space. I'm going to turn it off for now, but just let's focus on this incredible sort of fuzzy, sustain, sub-octave generator. I'm playing an octave up there, so here's the sound without it. Right? With it. It's pretty crazy. I actually like turning the hype down a bit, because the hype for me kind of gives it almost a little bit more of a scoop sound. Now, we've got plenty of bass. I want some mids. Oh. I think to adjust that, what do we need to do to get a little bit of compression in there, maybe? I guess this was the compression side of it, but we wanted to control some of this. Yeah, now it's just thunderous. So very quickly, we're able to transform this sound hugely just by turning it off here. It's like 100% 9 Inch Nails now. Yeah, just monstrous. Now, Twisted Space is not just a reverb plugin. It does a lot because it's both a convolution plugin, but not just of The emphasis here isn't on sampling realistic big reverb rooms like you would get with Liquisonics or Altiverb reverb plugins. What they're doing here is using interesting sounds to convolve or to change the timbre of the synth sound or whatever type of sound you're trying to make. So what's super cool about that is if we go over here, we can see this natural element section. Right now on this preset, it's dinosaur breath, but there's so much stuff in here that's crazy, that's far beyond just talking about regular reverbs and things. So what we can do is actually check out some of the presets here. By the way, there's a lot of presets. All you have to do is hit this little triangle to the left here. Not as many over here, but they're there. But so many things to check out. Let's see, what's a good one sounding? Helix delays. Let's try that out. I'd like to see what that's like. You'll notice there's a sub-octave here too. I actually think I like this natural part without any of that. Going back to the ambiance here. Very interesting. See if I turn the gain all the way down on the ambiance. So what I think's going on is if you turn the blend all the way down here, this is the amount going into the reverb from the natural element. So this is this double helix that's super interesting. So drawing it up, now we once again have... Hey, how's it going, Adam? How's it going in the hood? Johnny, welcome to the stream. So you can see very quickly how much fun and exciting sound design is right at your fingertips with Omnisphere, but especially using the sonic extensions, effects, and samples. This was one layer out of 4, so just like a D50, it's got 4 layers, and there's a lot that you can do with that, and you don't really need a whole lot. Dubstation Zero says, I like those textures, the crackles and pops. Are they independent from pitch if you play higher? Let's check it out. They seem to be independent from pitch in the sense that all of the sonic gooiness that's going into that from Omnisphere into that effect, the effect itself, the sample that's loaded in there that's creating that convolution is the same. So it's not tracking the key bed like maybe some other things are, which is, it's not like if you were to load a sample of that same sample and use it just as an extra layer to add some texture, right? You would get something very different. So anyways, I'm going to just save this real quick, save patch as, and we're going to go in here to Twisted Trees, Vulture Culture patches, and we're going to call this one 9-inch tails. And we're going to call this one, the author is myself, Vulture Culture. And we're going to go for type synth bass. I think that's a type we can go to. Synth bass. Not bells, bass. Easy street. Okay, that was the first one. We're going to cover a lot. I'm going to try to go as fast as I can tonight so we have as many cool sounds for you guys to check out. And like I said, all of these are going to be free. I'm going to post the link to these sounds in the comments after the stream. So going back in to layer 1, we're just we're going to rinse and repeat. Sample, we got everything we had before, but why don't we back out and go to bowed instruments and check out, what do we have here? Oh, these are all the same. Let's go for bowls and bells and check out Ghost Ship. See what this is. Wow, that's an awesome sample. That's a very cool sound that we could layer with some DSP synthesis, maybe. We can do both of those. Let's start with this one, because it'll be a little interesting. So all I'm going to do for this layer is add some release. I'm going to add a little bit more release. Hey, Machine Storm, how's it going? Mixed effects, really cool. Yes, they are super cool, Johnny. Just, Diego is a master when it comes to sound design. I mean, who would even come up with just these incredible sounds? Now, in this example, you can always turn off layers here or down here. You'll notice that both of those switches hit at the same time. I'm going to turn this layer off, pull up layer B, and then we can go through all of the waveforms that are in Omnisphere. Now, in Seismic Shock, we've got a different set of waveforms, but just all of this you've got built into Omnisphere already. Now, in this case, when we pull up a sawtooth, and I want to get a little Juno 60 saw pulse width modulation. So you can see that what we have is a sawtooth that morphs into a square wave, and not just any square wave, but actually a Juno 60, and then it moves through this wavetable to some PWM, right? So here's how this sounds. I have to turn this layer on. So that's a Juno 60 sawtooth wave. So it's sort of like the full range of what it can do. I'm assuming what we're seeing here is actually the architecture of the Juno 60 is where you can, it's not like a modern synth where you can blend between a sawtooth and square. They're either on or off, and you can have them both on. So I'm assuming this is a saw plus pulse width modulation. So by dropping this shape knob right in the middle here, right-clicking and modulating with an LFO, now we can have that sweep for us. Let me turn that down a little. It's a little shrieky. Dubstation Zero asks, can you use the effects engine on external sound sources? Yes and no. So you can't use the effects live. So there's no way to pass live audio through Omnisphere currently and use the effects that way. But you can look up a video that I did. I think the thumbnail says like Poly 6 versus Omnisphere. But basically, if you look up Omnisphere live effects or something like that, I showed how, because you can drop any sample you want into Omnisphere, what I would do with some of my tracks is actually just bounce out the track, drop it into Omnisphere, press play, and then apply effects. And I thought it was a very quick and easy workaround to be able to use all of the effects on Omnisphere. You just can't do it live, which is a bit of a shame. You can't, like, say, run some of your awesome modular setup through Omnisphere's effects currently. Orlando, how's it going, my friend? Mr. Cyclone Industries up in the chat. Good to see you, my friend. What's new? So let's increase the rate. And the source knob lets us control how much of whatever shape we're going. As soon as you see red here, that means you're clipping, or it's not going to go further than that. Love that you're at work, getting paid and watching Vulture Culture. So now we have like this nice thick Juno sound, right? A couple of things. We can go over to Unison here and kick this on, and now it's going to get real thick. Really awesome immediately. We've got this analog knob here. So I actually like turning the detune all the way down and using analog, and this is analog drift. The analog drift gets out of control real quick, so I'm going to turn this up so you can hear the effect. It gets intense. I'm going to bring that back. So what's happening there is each one of the detuned voices is drifting in and out of tune, just like a voltage-controlled oscillator on one of these fantastic vintage synths behind me would. Super great feature in Omnisphere. I don't think a lot of people realize are there. Can you import Windows to da.wave? What is that, Machine Storm? I actually don't know. So anyways, this is a very quick way to get awesome vintage synth tones out of a software synthesizer. And let's just put a little filter on there. Almost sounds like it's phased, yes. And we could control, you could add a bunch more oscillators here. You could also make it mono by moving spread here. That's really going to give you that authentic sound, because a vintage synthesizer, most of the analogs are mono. They're not stereo, and they didn't usually pan left and right. But it's the future, so let's turn the spread all the way up. And then we can just go over to this filter envelope here and apply some filter shapes so we get a little bit more of a sound to it. Add a little bit of release. Let's put like more than 5 seconds of release on the filter in the amplifier, which also will help it sound vintage, because back in the day, not everybody had a reverb unit, so to have those beautiful vintage tones, they used a lot of release. Maybe a little less. Yeah, just immediately gorgeous. Now, another thing that was common with synthesizers like the Juno 60 is they had one envelope that controlled both the amplifier and the filter. So what we can do is actually just, we can copy, if I hit this real quick, copy envelope preset here, little triangle to the left. Here's another big tip that a lot of people don't know about Omnisphere. Copy that, and then just paste it right here. Now we have the exact same envelope, adjusting for velocity here. I could just turn this down, I suppose. Velocity is independent. But you can see we have the exact same for the amp and the filter, and that's how it would work on most vintage synthesizers. Nowadays, we're spoiled. We have like synths coming out with like 4 fucking envelopes. But that really gives it, hey Shane, how's it going? That gives it that vintage sound for sure. Now, it's a little bright, which the Juno actually can be. But if we want to make it a little bit more vintage, we've got a couple of options. Going into the filter here, we've got different choices. So for one thing, if we go for just a different one, like warm, immediately it's more authentically vintage than the default, which is UVI2, which is a little bit more like serum. So going over to warm has a lot of that vintage character there immediately. And we could just dial back the envelope amount a bit too, because that's another thing with vintage synths. A lot of the times that envelope amount doesn't actually move all that much. So now we have this really great Juno brass type sound. And we have this twisted ghost ship, which won't blend in at all. Going back to the amplifier, let's bring the release down a bit. And actually, let's bring the sustain so that the sample fades out in... So right now, it's a little disjointed. I'm hoping that when we apply some twisted root and twisted space, we start to get something a little bit more glued together. This reminds me a lot of how I do synthesis with the Roland D50, which of course Eric Persing worked on as well, where you sort of start with like an attack sample and then layer it with a bit of synthesis. So let's go into the effects and let's pull up twisted root and twisted space again. This time, I'm going to start again by turning twisted space off. And I'm going to go through some of the presets here so we can just hear how these sound. Without. With. Wow. Wow, just crazy. Really great. Get a little bit of interesting pitch trackiness, almost like from like one of those old Boss pedals that you would have back in the day. But man, right in this range, it's very beautiful. Yeah, super great. So again, we don't even, I mean, the presets feel like cheating, but they kind of get it done, right? Doesn't that sound, I think that sounds great. Now we can go into twisted space and try a few different presets. And, you know, I don't know. I'm going to give you guys a second here. Call out. Can you guys see that? I hope you can. All of the different presets to check out. Let's see here. I'm going to go with Mothman. I think I saw Mothman. Yeah, it sounds great. Jim Abbey says, lots of my string sounds I use a phased effects. Yeah, well, Omnisphere has a lot of really great phaser sounds in it too. We can actually check that out in a second, but let's just rock this for a split second. DJ Brown out. Kind of like a big space, but not super long. Let's try, I don't know, Glass Grinder? That's probably going to be too harsh. Interesting sort of space. Let's see. Creaking Logs Echo. Let's see. Wow. I'm a big fan of using altering presets and so on and so forth. When it comes to the effects in Omnisphere, though, these presets are so great at just getting you somewhere quickly. Let's try Windy Wash. Let's see what's up with this one. It did feel like it turned into an orchestra hit. Wow. Pretty crazy how far that took it. We can increase the modulation here. There we go. So it's got kind of that more lexicon, phasey, washy sound. That's crazy. Okay, this is the sound without it. This is the sound with it. Let's dial it way back. I think this one might be tough just because the we could bring the, let's see here, going back to the ambiance, we got time, regeneration, modulation, spread. I'd like to cut some of the high end out. Let's see what happens if we do. Jim Abbey says, I'm not a software synth guy. I like watching what you do with them. Not ready to go to the dark side yet. No, I totally agree. And it is one of those things. There's people who love hardware and there's people who love software. I find myself to be kind of in the middle where I like both. I do think Omnisphere is just awesome. So a great thing about Omnisphere is if you're a hardware guy, Omnisphere is hardware integration. So you can actually, you know, hook up a hardware synth and use it to control Omnisphere, and you never even feel like you're not, like you can do it completely from your synthesizer and never look at the screen unless you want to bring in something like Twisted Space or something to bring it in there. Hardware, I feel like I have more control. That's part of what I wanted to show with this stream too, Jim, is to show that it's very easy to get super captivating, awesome sounds. I'm going to check out a couple more of these because I want to get something that sounds really big and fat. Whoa. Holy shit. That's sub-octave. That's crazy. I have to go up an octave for that. Wow. up into the octave over here and bring it up an octave because you got to play high. Super cool. I'm going to bring it all the way up so we're just hearing that deep cave explorer running through the ambiance. Wow. I want to bring that sub-octave down a little bit, see how it sounds. Wow. You can see this high cut here is pulling out a lot. That's just gorgeous. Massive. Maybe too massive. I don't know. Wow, just incredible. So we could save this patch real quick, and again, we're just using a couple of layers, nothing super complicated in here. So we're gonna call this one Infinite Cavern Pad, even though it's not infinite, I suppose. So once again, author, Fat Daddy Dalliance, and the type, we're gonna call this one Synth Long. Daddy Long, you know what's up. It's in here, isn't there? Synth Long, isn't that a category? Sweeping pads, we'll call it that. Yeah, so just, oh, such a joy. It's so warbly and fat. Yeah, so something like Twisted Space is just like a pad monster. Dubstation Zero says, I love analog filters. Don't care about digital in the box, out of the box at any other point if I can get analog filters. I agree with you, Dub. I am a huge fan of the vintage hybrid synth category, in large part because that combination of vintage digital gritty oscillators into an analog filter that gives you the warmth and the smoothness, and just that's like a chef's kiss. Like, I just love that sound. And analog filters are cool. Digital, especially, you know, I'm mostly in the vintage space, so nowadays digital filters sound pretty good. Back in the 80s they sounded pretty bad, for better or worse. Sometimes you like that sound, but you know, even like a couple of the 90s synths that I thought the filter should have sounded better. So an example would be like the K5000S, the Jupiter, or the JP8000. Both of them have fine digital filters, but they definitely have that like digital filter sound, and I don't love that. So anyways, this is just, you know, glorious. Really into it. All right, let's keep going. So once again, we can just go into the sample here, and we could back out. We could go into the distortion category. Let's see what's here. We've got a few different things. If I go to darkness, we've got these angry hornets. Wow. I like that one. Let's do two. Let's do 6 and 8. So I'll start with 6. And then we'll turn on oscillator B, pull up the same sample. So Twisted Trees, distortion, and 8. So now we've got both at the same time. So we've already, one great thing about starting with samples and using that as an oscillator instead of the DSP stuff is you can have a whole lot of complexity baked into the sound. Just super glorious. Like a good edge on most sounds, Jim Abbey says, I make with synths in Omnispheres a future purchase soon I would use for smaller venues. Yeah, well, that's another great thing about Omnisphere is, you know, it's easier a lot of the times in a live situation to have it all set up and super easy. I don't think any of us love the idea of showing up at a venue with like a MIDI controller and a tablet. But it's a viable way to have a lot of really great sounds that would be harder. You'd need more hardware a lot of the time to get the flexibility that you get with something like Omnisphere. But yeah, when space is limited, beautiful. So once again, let's go into the filter here. And we've got a lot of presets for the filters. Now, these are not presets for the envelopes or anything. That's what's so awesome about Omnisphere is that you've got so many presets for just one module as opposed to an entire preset. Of course, those are there too, over 15,000 sounds or however many thousand they've put in this thing now. So we could go all sorts of different areas. We got state variable filters, like with all sorts of stuff. Specialty filters. Oh man, stereo phase filter. That's got Jim Abbey's name all over it. Let's see what we got here. Wow. Let's play with the decay time. Or fast. Increase the resonance. Wow. Just really great. Oh, I think I was only doing that on one layer. So there's a way we can fix this. We can go to main, and if you go to signal path and you go to shared, that will make everything the same. So now you'll notice these are yellow instead of blue. And that just means they'll all go through the same filter. So I'll go back to specialty filter and grab that phase filter here. There we go. So this is definitely a Jim sound because it's got a phaser and it's distorted to high hell. Let's add some release to the sound. Hans Volt, how's it going, my friend? Not bad. We've got a lot going on. Now, let's pull up the same thing. So these bespoke effects for Twisted Trees are not in Omnisphere by default. You have to have bought the Sonic extension. And in fact, all of the sounds we're creating will require Twisted Trees, but they're also using Twisted Trees, right? And so there's all sorts of amazing effects in Omnisphere. And we can go through a few other ones, but for the time being, it's fun just to use the ones that are already there. Yeah, but with more sustain, well, that's easy enough. We can add some of that. Why don't we I'm going to show a little trick for how you can get some sustain, because we've got these samples, right? But now they're gone, right? That's the sample. I've only got this short little space. So why don't we get a nice thick twisted space sound going first? Let's find a few different sounds here. Let's try Bat Cavern. I want more of that sub-octave for this in particular. And we can turn the time down a bit. We don't need quite as much. So now what we've done is we've sort of created a bit of that sound. I don't need any low cut. I want all that bass to sustain. But I can cut some of this high end out. Even more. There we go. So that's like, you know, vintage digital reverbs like the Lexicon 224. Very dark. They didn't have the bandwidth to let high end through. So I like that sound where it's like big and beefy. Very thick. Now, we've still sort of got this sound of like the sample running through this really crazy, cool reverb, right? But I need to smash that so that we can get that sustain that that Jim's looking for. So this is swapping the order, right? Usually I would go distortion into reverb, but for certain circumstances, you might want to go the other way. So let's pull up another preset. Here's flat. You can already see that it's doing something. It's giving it, it's pulling it forward. So there's already some compression in there, right? But let's try a few different ones. Let's go with, let's see what Mantle does. Whoa. Try Mudless. Let's try Quake. Oh, this one's gonna be good. Wow. One thing about Twisted Trees is it's all about that bass, Like, it is insane how much low end you can get out of some of these sounds. I mean, just so much. So I want to turn that time down a little bit further. Now we don't need it as much because it's being fed into the compression, which is going to artificially extend the decay of the reverb, or the perception of the decay of the reverb. Wow. Just massive. So I'm going to... I'm still getting a little bit too much of that little whiny sound from the front end, which is cool. That's part of the sound. We just throw in a power filter real quick and bring that down. Just to get rid of like the worst of that top end, because now as we're gluing it all together, yeah, it's just darkness. So it's so much low end. We could have a little bit more high end and low mids in here. Let's go and add some sustain as well. Wow. Yeah. I hear a lot going on interlaced into sustain. Yeah, so it's just got this massive sort of quality to it. Wow. I mean, just how much bigger do you want a sound to go? I'm going to once again just bring it up to the octave. That way it sort of encourages... yeah, a lot going on, like the riser effects on the prologue and mini log. Exactly. A little bit of shimmer sound to it. Yeah, just, it's there, isn't it? It's so big. One way we could counteract that, actually, is just with a little of the studio EQ, and we could just low shelf out a little bit of everything below, say, 500, and just pull a little out here. Can we get a whammy bar on it? Sure. So I believe we have a whammy bar in here. I know we have a wah-wah. Yeah, but I guess if you wanted some pitch, we could just do it with the pitch wheel, right? There's all sorts of, I mean, we got distortions and amplifiers, all sorts of stuff in here. Pretty great. But if, yeah, we wanted to go to the bend range here, bring this up to an octave and down an octave, say, we could get some of this type of sound going. Yeah, so interesting. Very interesting sound. We'll call this one... What do we call this one? We'll call this one, yeah, a little bit of interlaced sustain. There we go. Once again, author, vulture culture, and the complexity, high, and the type is going to be some, let's see here. Do we have anything that says deep? Let's see. We'll go back down to pads. Saw them. Pads. Pad or pads. Let's go with pads. Everything's going to be pads tonight. Yeah, just incredible what can be done. So once again, let's initialize and keep going. Really fun to use Omnisphere. I mean, here's the thing. I love all of my vintage analog synths. They're beautiful and gorgeous in their own way. But it's hard to compete with something like Twisted Trees when it comes to sound design potential, right? And here's another thing we could do. Why don't we, once again, kind of go down vintage synth lane? What kind of vintage synth sound would you guys like? Why don't we do something brassy? So let's go ahead and pull up the Oberheim SEM saw, right? And you can see it. We can morph this as well. So just like you could, a little Tom Sawyer, you know, a little. Whatever the fuck Tom Sawyer was. We'll do the same trick. We'll modulate this, and we will modulate with an LFO. And I'm going to increase the rate, so we have. Is this available elsewhere? Tragically, no. So the thing about all of the sonic extensions is they exist within Omnisphere. So they're a lot like Monarch and Razor are inside of Reactor, Native Instruments Reactor. I think that's what the sonic extensions are most similar to, where it's like they exist within a certain environment. And Omnisphere is just so big and so vast. By the way, like, this should be pretty obvious. I'll just pull up a second. You've got 8 different parts up here, which just I hardly ever use it in that mode. But if we just went to Sonic Extensions Twisted Trees and we picked any old pad, so Angry Hornets horn. So this is using those Angry Hornets sound samples we use. Every single patch in Twisted Trees has custom controls. So these controls are different. You'll notice some things kind of move around as we move through. Like things are they're not the same. Like we've got this slurp control, whatever that means. Oh, I don't have that loaded up right now. But you can just see how deep the sonic extensions really are. The way I like to describe them is they really are instruments in and of themselves. If you want to see more of that, I did do a review of Twisted Trees on this channel that goes more deep into using Twisted Trees the way it was meant to be used, which is with these custom controls so that you're always checking out this stuff. But I actually like using it without the custom controls and making your own stuff here. So in this example, I want to use just the DSP, sort of go into vintage synth land again with the DSP, but use the bespoke effects, the Twisted Tree effects on that to take it out of just being, kind of old school or whatever. Machine Storm says, I've been messing with Stylus RMX trying to import REX libraries. Had it on my fuck it list for some time. Yeah, Stylus RMX is a very cool plugin, pretty old at this point, and I'm still shocked by the feature where you can drop any loop into it and it'll just automatically cut it up, and you can like make that loop like 7/8 time or something and it just works, right? That's pretty crazy. So worth going back in time to like 10-15 years or whenever it came out and checking out Eric Persing's demo of it and some of what that plugin can do. Omnisphere hasn't kept up with Stylus RMX, but they did say, I don't know, about a year and a half ago, like, we did not forget about rhythm. So there's some stuff they're working on in there. Anyways, back to this Oberheim SEM saw. Right? Super cool sound. Let's get the filter going. And what we can do is, why don't we pull up a preset here, state variable filters. And we can try a few different ones, but let's just go to the 24 here. right, so the way state variable filters work in Omnisphere, if you don't know what a state variable filter is, the Oberheim SEM and the new OBX8, as well as the Matrix 12, those go for about 25 to 30 grand nowadays. All Oberheim synths had this wonderful feature where you could blend between different filter types. So not just low pass, but actually through notch and high pass, or flick on band pass filter, which gives a huge amount of versatility and just honestly gorgeousness to the sound. I want to say the SEM was actually a 12 decibel per octave filter. So yeah. Jim says, most of the effects you can't really hear when sharing the stage with guitars, bass, and drums. Live is so much different. That's true. I would say that's kind of true. Like, I am obsessed with reverb, but I wonder about how much of it actually makes it to the final mix, like how much it really impacts the final mix. They are apples and oranges, Machine Storm. So anyways, this variant knob lets us blend here between different modes. And just like everything in Omnisphere, we can modulate this. So if I just right-click, modulate with LFO, now we can see where the routing is gone to, which is LFO 2. If we zoom out, we can see that we're now on LFO 2 over here. But now what's happening is this is moving the variant knob, not the cutoff knob. So we can hear how that sounds. I'm just going to narrow that amount by bit, and let's modulate the cutoff with an LFO 2. So now we got LFO 3. We can change the rate a little bit. Same thing. So now we've got a lot of movement to the sound, and all I really did was right-click on the shape, go into the filter, right-click on the variant, right-click on the cutoff, and assign each of those with a new LFO. So we're using 3 LFOs to get that sound, and immediately it is quite magical. We have a lot going on. Let's just add some release and shave off a little of the front end. So that's a very cool Oberheim-y type sound. It's only one oscillator. So when I kick the unison on, in this case, I'm going to do the same thing, turn the detune all the way down, increase the drift though by a bit, and I'm going to bring the spread down so that we do get that honest vintage synthesizer sound. Wow, just incredible, that just magic sparkle. Really great. A little bright, which, by the way, plenty of vintage synthesizers were. But let's go ahead and take that and now start processing it with, whoa, wrong sonic extension, twisted root. And I want to pull up dark again. That's my favorite. Well, we didn't check out Quake. We checked out Quake. Let's check that out real quick. So let's see how this sounds. Whoa. Let's try Silt. Wow, that's actually very interesting. And let's go back to dark. I really like dark as a starting point. I think Silt was the best. Wow. Just massive. I'm going to turn back in the unison just the drift down a bit. It's a little crazy. Wow. I mean, it's like hollow but huge, and you get that beautiful Oberheim-y notch filter sort of gloriousness. Completely mono so far right now, right? So then we can use my favorite trick, which is to go to modulation here and pull up the analog chorus. And this is based off of the C2. We did the C3 over there the other day. We also could do the ensemble and the TC electronic. So this is just going to take the sound. So here's it with it off. Right? Pretty good. On. instant vintage vibes because it has that sort of filtered bucket brigade delay chip sound where it's not just super digital and kind of boring. And what we can do is we can add the warmth. We actually have a mono switch here, so if we're using some samples and we want to get them down to mono like it would be with the real chorus, the CE2, I have a CE3 over there. We did the stream on that. Go check that out. Vintage effects on vintage synth. That actually has a stereo out, which is why I got it. Very similar chip. But the warmth knob or button. Really great. Let's try it without it though. I think I like it without it in this case because it just immediately took it out of that little too bright digital sound. And now let's really muck it up with some twisted space. Let's see. Multi-tap water. Let's go through a few of these. Okay, multi-tap water is OP. That's crazy. So we're probably going to use that one. Let's try logging accident. Wow, that's crazy how it just sort of like gets out of there. It's almost like a gated reverb. Liquid worms. That has like an almost phasery type of resonant sound. Lightness. Wow, that's like that giant, big sky type of sound where it just keeps going. Let's try leering creatures. It's really crazy. Very cool. Back to lightness. That one's very gorgeous. Multi-tap water. That's truly just something else. Like on its own, that's just... just insane. So we're going to call this one OB-SEM darkened water pad. And we'll just slap in pad here. Author, culture. And then we'll go to lightness. I thought just sounded really beautiful, massive. Like, are you kidding me? So we can save this patch as OBM. We'll call this notch gloriousness. Bad. I don't know if that's how you spell gloriousness. Same thing though. Author. So, just looking at our patches real quick here, we can go from one to the other. Over to here. Just two completely different synth sounds, even though aside from the preset we pulled up on Twisted Trees, they are identical, but couldn't be more different. I mean, just this one though. That's me all day, right? Those are the types of sounds that I'm in love with. It's probably too big to fit into a mix, where there's like too much going on a lot of the times, unless you do ambient music. So you probably have to dial that back a little bit. But just overall, I think it's Pretty incredible. So would anybody like me to try something else? Any other types of sounds you'd like for me to try making using Twisted Trees? Let's go through some of what we got here, some of the different stuff. This is really interesting. Wow, these are some pretty crazy. All right, so that leads me in a certain kind of direction already. So once again, maybe it's I've been programming a D50 too much, but that leads me to think, oh, I know what I could do with that. I could do some sort of like E-piano type sound, FM stuff. So here's a real quick, I love FM in Omnisphere because it's so simple. It's not crazy. So let's go to synthesizer and pull up a classic waveform. And we have a few different ones. Triangle and sine is a good place to start for FM. We've got a monopoly triangle. Why don't we go ahead with that? I think I want to start with that. And just for the pure nepotism of having the monopoly in the studio with me right now. So let's turn this on. You know, sounds just like the monopoly. Did that, last week on stream, checking out the monopoly. So, right? That's how a monopoly sounds. If we go into FM here, we can turn this on. And you can hear that we have a somewhat useful sound, but it's a little kind of like middle of what an E-piano sound might be. If we move the frequency up here to like around here. We could go all the way up. Without FM. Right? And so really it's this depth knob here. You'll notice that we're in boost mode. Omnisphere defaults to that now. Basically lets you go a little crazier than you would normally be able to do. So right around 850 sounds good. So I'm going to modulate this with the, I'm going to go to all mod sources. So we can modulate it with an envelope, but in this case, I want to use an envelope that already is on the front panel, which is the filter envelope. This is all the things you can modulate with, by the way. But I'm just going to go to filter envelope. And you'll see that it pulls it up here, so I don't even have to leave the FM page to actually do some programming here. And so we want to get up to 850, so I'm going to bring this up to 850 here. So what's going to happen is at the end of the filter envelope, it's going to start at 850 and it's going to fall to the bottom here. Right? I'm going to decrease the decay there. Right? So now we kind of have like a little bit of a basis for the body of an E-piano sound. Some like very simple Yamaha DX7 2-operator FM here. Now I want to add a little bit more to it. So let's see what happens. We have these three options here: FM shape, symmetry, and sync. Almost taking into ring mod territory. Let's try symmetry. Not really doing too much with the modulator sine wave. By the way, you can modulate with much more than just sine waves. Like, so if we wanted to modulate, in this case, with the monopoly triangle. So this would be like using cross mod on the actual monopoly. We get a different sound. Did you guys hear that? The difference there between and this? It's a little bit more to it, which I actually like. Maybe it's because we were just doing a live stream on the monopoly last week. I don't know. And we can even hard sync that modulator. And again, we sort of get into ring mod territory. I'm actually going to kick the ring mod on now. Turn that all the way down. You can see that with the depth off, No difference, right? So I'm going to increase the depth just slightly to give it a little bit more of that sort of tacky plastic DX7 80s FM sound. There it is. So now we're getting that complexity. So even though Omnisphere is essentially just a 2-op FM synthesizer, because you have a ring modulator, which you can also do FM stuff with. If you saw my most recent live stream on the D50, I used the ring modulator in that stream to actually sort of do an FM bells type sound using ring modulation. So now we've sort of added that complexity into the sound, and we have a very authentic DX7, or to be honest, it's almost like one of the lower end DXs, or a Casio or the Korg, something like that. Yeah, it's that sound. And I love that it's a little bit, a little grainy, a little something to it. We could emphasize the vintage digital character by turning on the wave shaper. And adding some bit crushing. And bring the sample rate down a bit. I'm just going to turn the wave shaper off because we don't need that. So, the gain, I think, is down a little bit, but here's without, with. Now we've really got that sort of authentic vintage digital sound. We're actually much more low-res sounding than a DX7 would sound. We're almost like in Casio territory, right? So all of that was so that we could layer this twisted bamboo wide key over the top of that and use that for the tine instead of like you would use usually just like a little like glinty sample at the front or second FM layer. Now we have this for the attack. I'm going to turn down layer B just a bit here. Turn it up a little. Which sounds pretty good. It's a little, what's the word for it? We could try turning unison on and just see what happens. It's pretty, but I think I like it without it because it has that sort of more authentic vintage retro type sound to it. And we'll get the width with the effects in a second anyways. So let's go ahead, rinse and repeat. Let's pull up Twisted Root real quick. And we'll probably end up using like one of these other presets. Let's try Hi-Fi. Hi-Fi sounds pretty good. Low cut. I actually like low cut because I have a feeling we're going to add some depth with Twisted Space. So let's go ahead and pull this up. Let's just keep checking out different sounds. So where were we? Infinite Liquid? Immediate gorgeousness. Okay, I've changed my mind. We'll go back to dark maybe for this because this preset for Twisted Space is so bright. I want to bring in some darkness, you know. Go ahead and shape this a bit with these. It's so good. It's so gorgeous. Yeah. Okay, so then we can dial this back. Okay, I know what the problem is with this, for me anyways, which is that it's a little static sounding, and I don't want to use the unison. So we could either, by the way, I'm using common effects here. We could add effects just to that layer, right? So if we want to do the good old DX7 trick of adding an analog chorus pedal to it. Right? Immediately we've got some more. Also, I need to just add some release to that sound. I want to glue those a little bit further. Let's see if we increase the hype here. We could, as simple as add some dynamics here. So we could go like a stomp box compressor real quick and just... That helps smooth it out for sure. Machine Storm says, a little aliasing reminds me of the Emacs. Yeah, that's exactly it. I love that vintage sampler sound like the Emacs or the DSS-1 back there. This is some 90s scapes, yes, for sure, which of course, you know, big fan of those like YK4 and Sonic TS12. I know you've got one of those dub station. High end through because you get the sound of that initial sample. Again, just huge, massive, glorious, and all using just some basic Omnisphere synthesis and the samples from Twisted Trees. So I'm just go ahead and save this again. And we're going to call this one Animal Kingdom in the 90s. Even though I don't think it was open in the 90s. Author is Vulture Culture. And the type is keys. Hybrid keyboards. Boom. Yeah. Wow, just has that beautiful character to it, doesn't it, you know? I love the lack of tracking. It has that Boss OC2 sound. I think it's OC2. Yeah, just super gorgeous. So anyways, I want to keep going. If you guys want, please shout some stuff out in the chat. Anything you guys want me to cover, always love different things. So I was in the one-shots category. Let's go to textures. We haven't even looked at textures. We've got all sorts of categories here. I want to try out Celestial. Let's see what they thought, you know, was Celestial. Diego created the sound. There's all these info pieces here. Diego created the sound from trees, branches, and logs found while out in nature, using different techniques inspired by the elements in front of him. Wow. Palm ethereal. What if we just use both of those together? That's insane. Ceramic fireflies. So let's go ahead and find that. Once again, I'm going to go to main and put the signal path into shared. That way, as we move these envelopes in the filter, you see this little yellow thing right here? That's letting us know that the filters in the envelopes are shared between the layers. Another way you could do this actually is just using the locking here. If you do anything with these layers locked, these chains blue, that'll do the same thing, even for things like modulation and so forth. But when you have the shared signal path, you don't have to worry about that. It's more like when you have 4 layers of a synth running through one filter or something like that. Machine Storm says, my Emacs had a disc for Sekuachi. It sounded like Peter Gabriel. Yes, I love a good Sekuachi sound. Really great. So, first thing we really just need is just a shitload of release, right? Now I think all we need is a sub. So I'm going to go into synths here and again go through the vintage synthesizer library. They got vintage and modern. Let's go through some sub oscillators. In this case, I think I want to use the Andromeda sub. Who wouldn't want to have an Andromeda A6? That's definitely a fantasy synth. And now I just want to drop down an octave, right? So, wow, that's loud. We're going to bring that way down. Maybe we'll even bring it down 2 octaves, and we need to add some filter. Now in this case, I don't actually want the filter to affect everything, so I'm going to go back to normal, and now this filter is independent from the other filters. So I'm actually turn these guys off, because I don't even think we need the filters. But on the Andromeda sub, I want to... Oh, we could have just used the shape too. I'm so stupid. Let's go back to signal path shared so that we can use the filter. So if we want to use the filter, we can, but we just move the shape from square to a sine wave. We can add a little harmonics back in if we want. We can turn that down further. We don't need a lot of it. Devastation Zero says, heard a lot of bad things about the reliability of the Andromeda A6. Yeah, I've heard that too. I don't know. It's interesting. That synthesizer is, of course, one of those desert island synths that I think we'd all like to get our hands on. But I have heard the reliability thing. And you know what's funny about it is, even though it's all VCOs and analog filters, it can kind of sound like the presets just remind me of a virus so much that I'm kind of like, what's the point of all that analog goodness if you end up ending up sounding like that 2000s virus thing? I don't know. That's up for you guys to debate, I suppose. So yeah, real quick, once again, we didn't do a lot, just added a sub. Maybe we'll drop this to 12 down. Yeah, so without the sub, it sounds like this. And with the sub, it just gives it that fundamental you need to help it, you know, have a little bit more of something. We've got control of the analog knob here too, as well. But I think the standard's pretty good. Once again, why don't we have some fun with this and go Twisted Space first. Where were we? Helix delays? Did we get to that one? Glass grinder? Focus inversion. Let's try this one. Wow, that almost has that shimmer sound too, doesn't it? Really big. Same idea here. We're doing this sort of inverted signal chain. So instead of going distortion, reverb, let's go reverb, distortion, and we'll just put it on the dark setting and see what we get. Forcing all that into twisted root. and set it to flat here and just see. Man, it is gorgeous the way that that compression pulls it forward. A little bit of sub octave, and I think all to really do here is just add some high end, just bring up that brightness a little bit, so it's really scooped, like really thick warmth. I mean, if that's not just like instant cinema, right? Like just Hans Zimmer, Interstellar, hugeness, right? Just... We'll call that of second moon of Saturn pad. Save. Author. Vulture culture. Complexity. It's only letting me go to level 2. It's not giving me complexity 3 because I didn't use enough layers. I'm so mad. And type, we can go back to pads here and save that. So, wow. Just I mean, if that sound doesn't sell you on Twisted Trees, then you don't like the sounds I like, I guess. Aquatic Borealis says, I believe IK Multimedia has a synth based on the Andromeda. I believe you are correct, and it would be cool to check that out sometime. UVI Mission 6, is that the UVI version of the Andromeda? But I'd like much more to try the Don Solaris sound set on an A6. Yeah, that would be awesome. UVI makes some really cool stuff, for sure. I haven't gotten into them, but maybe at some point on this channel I will. Very cool, neat instruments. They have that sort of like covet digital or covet analog, embrace digital sort of philosophy that I love so much. So let's keep going. I want to really make a bunch of patches today. So let's make, we haven't yet made a lead yet. It would be fun to make a lead from one of these samples. That one could work. I'm sorry, I keep kind of jumping at like the first things I come across, but the thing is so many of these sounds sound so awesome. So we're going to turn the envelope down and turn the low pass on and bring it up to somewhere around 2K. I don't really hear too much of a difference, but what I really want is the resonance, right? And I don't want to use a super clinical filter. I want to use something maybe juicy and crank the resonance up. Again, I'm going to bring the sample start forward just a bit so we really have that sound immediately. And then I'm going to right-click resonance and modulate with randomize. So this is interesting. So now every time I hit the key, we're going to get a different resonance amount. But it'll be better if I bring the randomness down. So it's just a little bit. So on one key, So you almost get sort of like a sample and hold sort of effect to it, except just every time you hit the key, not ongoing. You could do sample and hold, right? Because we have sample and hold as a setting here, which we might use in the future. That'd be kind of fun. One of these patches is to use some sample and hold on them. But anyway, so we have a kind of a basic sort of sound. I'm going to go into main and again, just put it into monophonic mode. You can also do that by reducing the voice count. Something to think about. We'll go into the wave shaper, and this is where it's going to get crazy. Let's increase the bit crushing dramatically. Wow. Pretty aggressive, right? Let's bring in the sample rate. Really, really aggressive. But we can get some more color to it with the wave shaper. Wow, really in your face. Let's dial that back a little bit. Maybe try a different filter. Power. Edge. Yeah, edge I like a little more for this. Aquatic Borealis says, I should try the Mission 6. I recently signed up for UVI Sonic Pass. They have a ton of stuff. Falcon alone is massive. I didn't realize there was a Sonic Pass for UVI. What does that go for? So we have this like super cool sort of glitchy digital type sound. Really pretty neat. We don't need anything else really to complete this sound. We might layer in something else, but let's go ahead and try once again. Let's drop in Twisted Root and pick another one. Let's go with Quake and see how that sounds. Wow, that's awesome. It's not quite a lead, unfortunately. It's kind of like gotten a little bit more soundscapey. But that sound into something like Twisted Space, and then let's just keep checking out, flaring up. Let's see. Let's go Visol forever. Wow. I'm going to bring the mix all the way up so we can kind of figure out how we want the mix to sound here. That's about where I want it, nice and big, and like now I'm getting like images of like the decayed city after World War III, you know, like the apocalyptic type of sounds. I'm going to bring in a power filter just to shave off some of that annoying shrieking. Wow. Yeah, so just immediate apocalypse, right? You could play that sound all day and just get these massive tones as like the backing, either if you need an ambiance for a scene in a movie just that has that sort of despair to it, or if you just need something as like the backing layer in a techno track, right? Some sort of ambiance. Yeah, this sounds really cool. Aquatic, let's see here. Machine Storm says, I suppose UVI Sonic Pass is good if you want vintage at your fingers without the upkeep and breaking the bank. Loading from a disc can be a pain. Yeah, well, I'm used to the upkeep and breaking the bank, so Aquatic says it's expensive, $24 a month Canadian for me. I don't know how long I'll keep it. I just want to try their stuff. No free demo. Aquatic says it's pretty otherworldly. I agree. Machine Storm says, bought it outright, could have done Omnisphere. Meh. They do a big sale at the end of the year. Reminds me of a haunted number station. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. It's definitely that sort of like cursed. So we'll actually call it that. We'll go into Twisted Trees, and we'll call this Haunted Number Station Texture. And we're going to just call this one, let's see, is dark alien and sci-fi, atmospheres, atonal-ish, darkness, deep stuff. And then scoring elements and textures, textural synth. Textures. I didn't actually, God damn it. Okay, what was it? It was some deep, there was some depth to it. Darkness. That's what it is. It's darkness. Author, Vulture Culture, save. Yeah, this one's really cool. Lots of fun. And again, I've tried to keep all of these patches super kind of boring, like easy to do, something that you guys could pick up on very quickly and learn synthesis with Omnisphere along with me. Like that you don't necessarily have to be a sound design monster to be able to do some stuff with Omnisphere very quickly, very effectively. And like I said, hopefully this was useful to you, but if you just wanted the patches, they'll be in the link. They'll be in the comments below. I think I'm going to drop them as the pinned comment. Might end up in the description. It's going to be in one or the other. So yeah, really exciting tonight. Lots of fun messing around with Omnisphere, and Twisted Trees is just such an incredible product. So yeah, I hope it was a enjoyable stream for you guys, and that I hope I got across to people that, you know, the actual Sonic extensions don't just have to be patch libraries, right? We didn't use any patches to create these sounds. We just used the samples, a little bit of DSP synthesis, and the bespoke effects. A lot of the bespoke effects was where the sound design happened, and the presets they loaded it with were incredible. Once again, hats off to Diego Stocco and the entire Spectrasonics team. I'm such a fan of what they're doing with Sonic extensions because, you know, there's something to be said for all of the really cool products that we've talked about on this channel, and I always love hearing what you guys have got. But Twisted Trees is such a unique thing. Like, there's nothing else like that on the market right now. And I think that's cool, you know? I love going back in time with these vintage synthesizers and enjoying the sounds of yesteryear and what made those synthesizers so special that a lot of modern VSTs don't capture all that well. For sure. I love that. That's a big part of what my channel is, or probably the biggest part of my channel. But when it comes to sound design and doing something novel, doing some new sounds that haven't been heard before, that's going to be Spectrasonics. They're going to be the ones who go and create some sort of like future classic, right? That's what they're all about, and I love that. So hopefully you guys see it and get a chance to, hopefully just once again, a big thank you to all of the guys who made this possible, because it's such a great product. Jim says, do a Korg live stream. I have so many tips and tricks for Minilog, XD, Monolog, Op6, and Modwave, etc. I really should. I love Korg synths. I think I've had more Korg synths than any other brand. I just like the sound, like you, Jim. I just think they're great. I've done a bunch of live streams on Korg, but I wonder how many do I have now? I don't have all of my synths. 4 or 5 of them are in the shop right now. So that's a thing. We'll have to get back to that. Anyways, guys, Diodes and Rust is my Kawai R53 sample library. If you just go to the YouTube channel, go to the shop, you can get it for $10. Or what would be better than that is you guys can get it for free if you sign up for a membership. So memberships on the channel get you all of the great custom emojis that we have. Unfortunately, it doesn't show up on the playback here because Stream Elements hasn't gotten to where we can get the emojis in yet. But if you're watching the chat replay, you'll see all of the great YouTube exclusive or Vulture Culture exclusive emojis. Plus, you get the little vulture skull next to your name. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who is a member right now. So shout outs to Douglas, to Autumn, to Tony Argo, to Jim, to Vulture Mom, Aquatic Borealis, Dub Station Zero, Nikki Knoll, Andy Fields, and Anna. I appreciate all of you guys so much for supporting the channel directly. If you haven't yet, it's a great thing. Please consider supporting Vulture Culture directly by becoming a channel member. It's the best way to help me out. If you appreciate my content, you've watched my videos, you've watched my live streams, and they've been a benefit to you, that's a great thing you can do. And if you already have a membership, you can gift a membership to somebody else. Also a very sweet charitable thing. So, anyways, with that, guys, I appreciate you so much. I'm Vulture Culture. I'll see you next Wednesday at 9. Love and light, bitches. I'm out.